This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Moore versus Ryan. Ms. Moore, it's my understanding that you are suing Ms. Ryan for severe injuries that you sustained when you were in her horse stable.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're asking this court to award you $100,000 for past medicals, $25,000 for future medicals for dental, $7,040 for lost wages, $300,000 for pain and suffering, for a total award of $432,040. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Ryan, it's your position that you did nothing wrong. If Ms. Moore was careful, she would not have been injured. This is all her fault. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, well, let's get into the legal sauce. Tell me how you ended up at this horse stable.
Well, Your Honor, I've been working with horses since I was a little girl. I worked with my dad, showing horses, training them at my uncle's farm. We had horses there. And there I am on Snowflake when I was about 12.
Kind of a life passion.
Trained her, yep. I started 15 years ago training and jumping horses, and I went to buy a saddle. A friend of mine said that she had a saddle, Miss Ryan, for sale, so I went over and bought the saddle from her. We got to talking. She said that she needed some help at her stable, so I volunteered Saturdays. I've been there about a month.
And Miss Ryan, tell me about your horse stable. How long have you had this?
Yes, Your Honor. I've owned the stable for about 20 years, and I also have been around horses all of my life.
So both of y'all are pretty dedicated horse people.
That's me with my current horse, York. Yep.
Okay, York.
Yes, Your Honor. Yep.
Okay, you all pick good names for your horses. well, I mean,
Thank you.
How did this happen?
Well, Your Honor, I had groomed Meatloaf, and I was walking and I noticed my phone had fallen out of my pocket, and I looked back and it was laying on the ground. So I went back to pick it up, and just as I bent down, it startled Meatloaf, and she sidestepped and kicked me right in the mouth. And I felt blood filling up my mouth, and I had teeth. I was spitting teeth out. It was gagging me, and I fell on the ground, and
That's
I
your mouth?
passed out. Yes, that's.
Oh.
That's it.
I know it's hard to look at that.
I passed out, and the next thing I know, I'm in the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
So you lost a bunch of teeth?
I lost 7 teeth, Your Honor. It's going to cost $5,000 to $7,000 a piece to have them fixed. I'm going through the transplant right now of having the implants done, and they're doing bone grafts. It's just excruciatingly painful. I have to be sedated in order to do that. It's terrible. I have this mental block of going into the stable now around the horses, and that's my livelihood, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Moore, I've got to ask this. You lost a bunch of teeth when Meatloaf kicked you in the face.
Yes.
Are you wearing temporary teeth right now?
Yes, they've got a temporary plate set up in there, and it's really difficult to eat. I have problems trying to swallow. I have to eat a lot of soups and just broth and stuff because it's just hard to.
I can see the pain on your face.
I can't chew.
Miss Ryan,
Yes, Your
Meatloaf kicks Miss Moore. It's your horse stable. Why wouldn't this be your fault?
Your Honor, I was working with another horse over at the barn, and I heard a rider scream. I looked up and saw Miss Moore on the ground and Meatloaf right there. I ran over to her and immediately took the reins on Meatloaf and walked her over to another trainer to get her out of the way and to take her to a barn.
What do you think happened? Did Meatloaf just go crazy?
No, Your Honor. I don't think Meatloaf went crazy at all. Every rider and trainer knows not to go behind a horse, and
That is not true.
Miss Moore.
You can walk behind a
already
horse if
told
you do it
excuse
properly.
Me, the judge asked me a question. Miss Moore already testified she's had years and years of experience with horses.
Exactly,
and
so I
trained
know how to
horses.
walk behind a horse.
So she should have known not to go behind a horse.
That is not a rule.
And I think what happened
Please
is...
respect the process. Okay? Just direct your comments to me.
Your Honor, I think what happened is that she bent down to pick up her phone.
That's not...
And
you know
Meatloaf
yourself,
thought-
as a trainer, you can walk
Excuse me.
behind a horse properly and it does not react.
But you bent down behind
listen
the
now.
horse.
I mean, maybe that's the general rule. I had a coworker years ago who walked up to a horse but didn't touch it as she walked from the back. The horse turned and completely destroyed her face.
If she scares it, but I know how to walk behind a horse, and if you know, it's not a rule that you don't walk behind a horse.
Not
the
only did
rules
she-
are
not
you
only
know
did
how
she-
to do it.
but
So
yet
if
she-
you're trained to do it, How does this happen?
Because the horse is a dangerous horse, and I wasn't
It is not a
explained
dangerous
this
horse, Your
when
Honor. It is
I
not.
took over. I've been working with this horse for 4 weeks, 4 hours.
Why do you call
This
a horse
knows-
that you're working with dangerous?
Because it's done
not.
this before.
Okay.
2 weeks before my incident, Meatloaf kicked another person in the head.
But
This
Miss Moore,
happens.
you've been working with Meatloaf for 4 weeks, right?
Only 4
That's right,
hours,
Your
Your
Honor.
Honor, on Saturday.
But don't you get to know the horse?
Yes.
You do a little, but if you're not told that this horse has a temperament, just
It
training
does
and
not.
trying
It
to
does
get
not
to
have
know-
a temperament.
Obviously, it does. If we've
And
both been hurt.
She was
Address
I
me.
worked with horses
Address
my
me.
whole life, and I've never got kicked.
Ladies, we're gonna have order in this court. Tell me about Meatloaf's personality. Every animal has a personality.
Meatloaf has a great personality. She is being trained, and that's why Miss Moore was there to train her. And after 4 weeks, she should have known what might spook her or not spook her. And the problem is she bent down
You
behind the
can't-
horse.
you
But if
cannot
Meatloaf
predict.
is kicking folks,
Don't forget, Your Honor, you have to have a respect for a horse.
well, they're
As a
very
tiny-
powerful animals.
That's
Yes,
correct.
and that's
Even-
why you need to know how to train them, as
and
I
you do. And you do, right?
Yes.
But
So
she
tell me
should
about
have
your
known not to.
injuries.
My injuries, Your Honor, I have facial lacerations, which are going to require plastic surgery, Your Honor. I'm going to have 7 teeth implanted.
That's a very painful procedure.
It is very painful, and it's just a time-consuming. It's going to take months to have this done where I can actually eat.
You're probably having headaches and everything else.
I am having horrible headaches. The pain medication keeps me almost in a lethargic state, and then when I'm not on it, I'm in horrible pain.
I see you're
I'm having
asking this
trouble
court for your lost
driving,
wages.
And yes, I can't work. I can't work in the state. People think I'm a monster.
How are you going to pay these medicals?
I can't.
You see, Miss Ryan, this is a big deal for her.
I understand that, Your Honor. All I'm telling the court is that it wasn't my fault. And it's not my responsibility, and I appreciate that she got hurt, but it's not, you take a risk when you come around horses like that.
I want to
and
get
train
this
them.
right. You knew that Meatloaf had kicked someone else before it kicked Miss Moore.
Right, but...
Hold on.
That is, yes, Your Honor.
Why wouldn't you just tell her, hey, Meatloaf was kicking folks a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was?
Well, Meatloaf wasn't really kicking folks, Your Honor.
Meatloaf did
Meatloaf
kick
got
people.
scared.
Kicked her right in the head.
And kicking is a natural reaction for a horse when they get scared
It is
or
not
frightened.
a natural reaction.
And let me
Uh,
finish.
address
A horse's
me, please.
natural reaction is
Address
to flee.
me, please.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Address me, please.
And-
A horse's natural reaction is to flee.
I
Before
say
you were
something?
kicked, did you know that Meatloaf was dangerous?
No one told
not
me.
dangerous,
If
Your
I
Honor.
would have known that, I would have treated this animal much differently.
Your Honor, the reason Meatloaf did not flee is because they were in a corridor going from one building to another, and there was another horse coming toward them.
Miss
So
Moore.
what Miss Moore should have done, is taken the reins and pulled Meatloaf around so that Meatloaf could see her when she bent down to
Which
pick
I
up her
would have
phone.
done if I knew
didn't
she
do
was a
that.
dangerous animal.
Ladies, talk to me. Talk to me. So, Miss Moore, you brought a witness with you, Miss Belinda Evans.
Yes, sir.
Miss Evans, would you stand and come to the podium? Now, you have a bit of a shiner on your head.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did Meatloaf do that to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me about that.
I was at the stables that day. My boyfriend and I were there, and he was taking some videos for social media, and I had decided to take Meatloaf out for some exercise. I had heard some word around the barn that she could be a bit of a handful, but I'd never really had any issues with her, so...
Yes, ma'am.
So I just took her out and I was walking her. It had snowed the night before, and I slipped on a slippery patch of this icy snow mixture and lost my balance and fell. But as I fell, Meatloaf lashed out to the side directly at me and kicked me right in the head. I heard a crack, and I didn't know if it was my skull or my helmet. There was blood in my eyes. I didn't know what was going on, and it was terrifying. Luckily, my boyfriend was there with me.
Now, your boyfriend
Oh,
caught this
and
on tape,
Yes,
didn't
he actually filmed the entire thing. I brought the video with me to show the court.
Now, I want to play it, but I won't do it unless you tell me I can. Are you okay with me playing this tape?
Yeah, I just probably won't watch. It's still pretty difficult for me to see, but you can play so that...
Okay, we're going
you
to
can
put
see
it up on the plasma here. This is you and Meatloaf.
Yes.
All right. That's amazing you were not killed. Miss Ryan, that looks like a dangerous horse to me.
Your Honor,
This is 2 weeks before. How is this not your fault?
the horse was reacting to being scared, and that's a natural reaction for
No,
a
as you can
horse to
see
kick
in
out.
the
So the
video.
way that Meatloaf reacted there, when Meatloaf kicks that hind leg and strikes Miss Evans in the face, that was a fear or startle reaction?
That's right, Your Honor.
No.
That's
Your
right.
Honor,
And that's
That is
what
not
horses
a
do when
natural
they're
reaction
they're
for a
afraid.
horse.
That looked evil. I want to see that again.
Your Honor, I don't think horses are evil like
A
that.
natural reaction would have
Do
been
you
for
see
her
how
to
the
fly.
horse turned and
It turned-
deliberately kicked her?
That
It
was
turned because it got
directly at my
scared because
head.
of her fall, and then if you notice, it ran off. It did not stay in
The
it.
Now,
natural
Miss
reaction
Moore
would have
said
been
that
to
when a
flight.
horse is startled, generally, they flee first before an attack.
Your Honor, the court has to keep in mind that a horse is big and a horse's hoof is hard and a horse has a shoe on their hoof.
You really
And so-
could be sued twice by both of these ladies. Ms. Ryan, whether that is a startle reaction or an angry, evil horse, don't you think you should have told Miss Moore about it?
Your Honor, every rider and every trainer knows when they come into a horse stable, they have to be cautious around the animals.
But
I
you're
was.
more cautious, wouldn't you think, when you're told 2 weeks before a horse nearly took a lady's head off, right?
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as that.
Is
Your Honor,
that
but-
extreme?
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, you're healing, and I
Well, maybe if
understand
you
it.
had
You got
this on
kicked,
your
but
forehead,
Miss
you
Moore.
might think about it a little differently.
We need to have order. Miss Moore, if you had known that Meatloaf had kicked Miss Evans, what would you have done differently?
Then I would have led the horse around because I know it's a dangerous animal.
should always lead the horse
if
around.
Miss Ryan had warned you,
Yes.
you would have done things differently and been able to avoid this.
Right.
Your Honor, every horse has the potential to kick. It's not that Meatloaf is aggressive or dangerous.
I mean,
Every-
like,
But
it's
all
aggressive
horses
and
aren't the
dangerous.
same, right?
Obviously, we've both been hurt.
It's similar to an argument about dogs, right? All dogs have teeth and the ability to bite, but only some dogs bite. And if this was a dog that bit somebody 2 weeks ago, the law says you got to tell folks if they don't know. The essence of your duty to tell her is she doesn't know what danger she's walking into, but you do.
I don't know what the law says about my duty when a horse kicks, but
Yes, ma'am.
being a seasoned trainer, Miss Moore should know that all horses have the propensity to kick. That's typical of horses. That doesn't mean they're vicious.
Ladies, I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff, you, Miss Moore, you've got to prove 3 things. You've got to prove that Miss Ryan was wrong and that her wrong caused your harm. We need not talk about your harm much to understand that it is beyond proof that you have been changed forever. This should not have turned out this way for you. You've put up evidence in this case that Meatloaf actually nearly killed somebody 2 weeks before with the same kind of kick. I was nauseous watching that video. But the severity of your injuries isn't the only thing I have to consider. I've got to consider whether Miss Ryan is legally responsible. And what that does, it calls into play the legal concept of knowledge of the hazard. Horses are wild animals. They're not like cats and dogs. They are unpredictable. They're big, powerful animals, but it raises the duty for the owner. If you know that this horse is dangerous, you've got to tell people who are around it because they cannot appreciate the danger unless you warn them. But we don't have the average user, the average person around the horse. We've got a horse trainer, an expert. Clearly, you grew up with horses, you understand horses, but more particularly, you understand this horse because you were working with this horse. That causes me to consider what did you know or what should you have known? Certainly, you have to know that horses kick. You have to know that. What that does, though, is it makes you have the same kind of knowledge that Miss Ryan has. When Meatloaf kicked, that was a violent act. However, it was the act of a wild animal, not necessarily something that's beyond your experience. Here, where you have equal knowledge of the danger, there is no duty to warn because she's not telling you anything you don't already know. And when you have equal knowledge of the danger, the law says Miss Ryan wins. Here, if I could rule based on how I feel, I would give you $10 million. But how I feel is not part of the legal calculus. The legal calculus is when two parties have equal knowledge, the defendant wins. And therefore, I rule in your favor, Miss Ryan, despite how I feel, but the law commands it. That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned. Mr. Richardson, it's my understanding that you suffered a number of injuries on a group adventure that Mr. Black arranged, and you're asking this court to award you $45,000 for medical expenses in the past, $15,000 for future medical expenses, and $29,000 for lost wages for a total of $89,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Black, you believe that had he not been so adventurous, he wouldn't have any injuries, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
He's responsible for his own injuries as you see it.
100%, yes, sir.
All right, well, let's get into the legal sauce. How long have you known Mr. Black?
I've known Mr. Black for probably about a year now. See, I'm a very adventurous, outdoorsy person. I've always been that way. And so I went on social media and I found this group called the Mountain Adventure Squad.
Okay.
And I read the description. They had similar goals to me. They wanted to hike all the peaks in the state, maybe a through hike in the future. Like, these are my goals too. This is a perfect group. So I messaged the leader, Dean Black here, and we talked for a while, and he seemed like a good dude. He is a good dude. And we just got together.
That's why you're suing me.
How did you end up starting this group?
So I've been hiking, the first time I went was with my daddy when I was like 5 years old. So I've been on the mountain, I've been in caves, I've been in rivers, I've been everywhere since I was about 5 years old. And I kind of, here recently, I really wanted to share my passion more with people. So
you live outdoors?
Yes, sir. So I decided to start me like a little group and find some people who kind of enjoying the same thing. And that's my mass group, really enjoy it.
So, Mr. Richardson, what kind of adventures were you looking for? You mentioned hiking.
Hiking, climbing, all sorts of adventures, camping, anything that we could do to get us outside and to get us the thrill of an adventure, really.
So, Mr. Black, this was your adventure. You put this together, right?
That is correct, sir, yes.
Well, what were you all supposed to be doing out there?
I mean, really just having fun, observing nature, enjoying a hike. I don't know about all this danger talk, but yeah, we were out there just having fun, enjoying a hike.
Well, hiking around the mountains and doing things out in nature, there are dangers, right?
There are dangers, yes, sir, but controlled dangers is the way I would put it.
And
so, controlled dangers.
So, Mr. Richardson, what's the thrill for you?
The thrill? Your Honor, I don't know if you've ever been on top of a mountain. Here.
I'm acrophobic, so never.
No roller coasters, anything? Well, when you're that close to something that is as big as a mountain, it's just, you feel so small. It's almost like a pleasurable existentialism. It's just, you're so small and the world's so big, just gives you a visceral rush.
Really connects you with nature.
Connects you with nature.
That's what fishing does for me. I fish out of a ditch if I can. But I understand that connection with nature, but not on mountaintops. So how did your thrill for adventure turn into a nightmare?
Your Honor, we found a new peak that none of us have ever been on. And so we woke up 5 a.m. in the morning, drove 2 hours to this new mountain. We got there, hiked 3 miles up to the top, and when we got to the top, it was gorgeous. You can picture a better hiking day.
That's amazing.
It is unbelievable. You can really see some spectacular stuff.
Now, what are we looking at here? How are we getting this view?
That's pretty much where we were hiking. That's my nifty little drone here. And
Okay, so you took this view from your drone?
Yes, sir.
Do you take your drone on these hikes often?
So recently just acquired this drone.
So when your drone is taking these views, where are you?
I'm down there. So I'm down here with everybody else.
So Mr. Richardson, what went wrong here?
So, Your Honor, if you could see on the screen, there's a tiny little dot in the middle up towards the top. That's where we are standing. And I was standing, we got to the top of the mountain. There's this boulder, probably 10, 15 feet high. And when you're on top of a mountain, you want to get to the very top of the mountain. And so,
because you need an extra 10 feet.
I made sure that this boulder was safe enough to climb. I know what I'm doing. I've rock climbed for years.
Did anybody else climb up there with you?
No, Your Honor.
No.
So you were kind of the guy seeking the summit peak.
Yes,
yes. When you're on the top of a mountain, you want to get as high as you can get.
So you climb up on this rock.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then what happened?
And then I was just taking in the breathtaking views, and as Dean said, he always takes pictures, and he had his newfangled drone this time. And so he's flying it around, and I'm standing, arms wide open. I do the regular pose, but I clearly cannot. And so I was standing arms wide open, just taking in the world and trying to get a cool picture. Why wouldn't I? We're on top of a mountain.
Well, this is a special moment.
It is a special moment. That's what I'm trying to say. And then
You could have enjoyed it from the ground where the rest of us were.
why?
You were
Do you
standing
get the
there
same
watching.
view?
You had no
Do you
need-
get the same view down there on the ground with the rest of the
No,
people?
the feeling you get on top of the boulder is way more than you can experience if you're just on the ground. You want to get as high as
So
you can
you're
on 'em.
standing on top of the boulder like
that.
this,
Yes,
right?
Your Honor.
This.
You're taking in all that nature has to give you, and then what happens?
Exactly. Then Dean starts flying his drone closer
wasn't
to
flying
us. I assume to get a better angle of the picture. He's taken pictures before. He knows what he's doing. So I'm
You see
standing
the
there.
drone flying around.
I see the drone flying
Okay.
around, yes. And so I'm standing there, arms wide open, waiting for the picture. And then the drone keeps getting closer and closer. And I'm just thinking, all right, Dean, it's getting a little close. And then it just beelines right towards me, hits me right in the gut. I fell off a boulder on top of a mountain.
So you broke your arm, you jammed your thumb, you messed up your ankle. What else?
And my rotator cuff is torn.
Mr. Black, is that what happened?
That's kind of what happened, but I just want to go ahead and say I was not at all responsible for that incident in that way because I was
Not
so the
responsible. Your drone knocked me over
The drone
off
was
the
in-
boulder.
Matthew, the drone was in home mode. It was in
Mr.
home mode.
Black,
I didn't have the controller in my.
You're controlling this drone, and the drone's flying around. It's in home mode.
Yes, sir.
Does home mode mean that it comes back to you?
Yeah. Well, so it's returning to you, controlled and stationary, like towards your direction, but it's not like out of control, going
It
crazy.
was in home
it's
mode,
not
supposed to be
like
going
I'm not
back to
holding
you.
the
Why did it
controller
go
down.
and hit
So,
me?
Mr. Richardson, you're standing on top of the boulder, and this drone slams into you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then what happens?
When the drone hit me, I don't know if you're familiar with drones, Your Honor, but
not.
it's basically a box with a camera with spinning knives on it.
There's a
And it flew straight towards me,
dramatic
hit me right in the
exaggeration.
gut. Just
It is
It was
not-
a horrible pain, and the force of the drone pushed
Blade.
me backwards off the boulder on top of the mountain.
Now, this drone is recording, right?
Yes, sir.
You've submitted a video. I want to see that video.
I
Let's
was
take a
not
look at it.
holding the controller when this happened, though.
Let's take a look at the drone. Didn't you see this thing coming at you?
I saw it coming towards me, but he was flying it before.
Your Honor, he was trying to hug it. It looked like he was trying to give it a hug.
Well, wait a minute.
I was trying to get
Mr.
a full
Black,
picture.
you saw it coming at him. You've got the control.
Exactly. Why didn't
I
he
was
steer
not
around
holding
me?
the controller.
Okay, where are the controls
So the
when this
controller
thing
was
is
sitting
flying?
down. I was just looking around. I had it home
Why
mode
was
to have
the
it.
controller not in your hands? You're flying.
It was on
a
home mode. It's
dangerous
on
piece of
autopilot.
equipment.
Mr. Richardson, let me conduct this, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
I got to find out what the bottom of this is.
Rude
okay?
and can't hide.
Yes, Your Honor.
So the controls are on the ground and you're just watching this thing fly around?
Well, so I practiced this. Okay, I've worked on it. I practiced all these modes. I've seen a lot of this stuff.
And
I'm sorry,
so
I'm
when
getting
it
a little
came
flustered.
back this way, this wasn't what you anticipated.
No. So
Now-
it came down a little more uncontrolled than I thought it was, but I did see it coming. And everyone else saw it coming. And everyone else kind of was like, move. Hey, it's coming. Matthew, it's coming. And Matthew just, did his thing, his Titanic deal, for no apparent reason. And
As I watched the video, and frankly, I want to look at it again, but I'm trying to figure out, what are you thinking when this thing is coming at you? Let's
Nothing.
look at it. Now, as I watched that video and that drone's coming at you, I wanted to scream, get out of the way, get out of the way.
he did.
Right?
He did.
I love Leonardo DiCaprio's pose in Titanic. It's a beautiful thing. But there were no drones coming at him. And now you end up with a Titanic kind of injury.
Yes, Your Honor.
What happened to your arm?
It snapped. I could hear the snap when I fell off the
should have
boulder.
moved.
And in addition to that, my left ankle, I can still barely move it. I'm in a brace still. My right thumb is all but broken.
So what's been the worst of your injuries?
The worst of my injury has for sure been my rotator cuff because it has kept me out of work for so long. I live paycheck to paycheck like most people, and not having this $29,000 from the last 5 months has put me in a very bad financial situation.
5 months out would break most families. Mr. Black, this is your tour, your adventure, your drone. Why not your fault?
I've repeatedly stated he should have moved and then I didn't have control of the drone.
So he should have protected you from a bad decision to put the
No, he should have
controls
protected
down?
himself. He should have protected himself.
Why weren't you driving the drone?
I had the controller was sitting on the ground, Matthew.
Smaller, it's equally as
I don't
dangerous.
understand. This is insane.
Do you have a drone license?
Of course I have a drone license, yes, sir.
Are you able to operate that drone and show me how it works?
Extremely well, and I can show you. That's why I brought this today.
Okay, I want you to do that.
Yeah, okay. Let's go then.
Sheriff Matt, will you get the drone? Sure. So, Mr. Black, tell me how this drone works. Show this for me.
It's pretty simple. I'm going to activate it like this, and then I can lift it up. Get that good levitation.
It's like a giant wasp or something.
It's cool, isn't it? So imagine this thing a couple thousand feet up in the air taking pictures of you while you're on a beautiful hike.
Oh, you can fly it now, can't you?
I can fly it, Matt, because I'm holding the controller. You're going
What?
to help me win this case, sure enough. Keep talking.
When you have the controls, you control where it goes and how it turns?
Yes, sir.
Will it do this in home mode?
That's the point of home mode. It's like an autopilot thing, more or less. When I practiced on a soccer field, for instance, I hit home mode, it returned to me and landed like a butterfly next to me.
So had you been controlling it on that day the way you did today, would he ever have been struck by your drone? If you had the controls in your hand and did what you did today?
I would say that was a complete malfunction. You can't predict a malfunction.
That's true.
So how would I predict that maybe I would have been controlling it and it would have malfunctioned the same way and nailed my boy?
Well, you don't hold
He
him
could have-
responsible, right?
He could have moved. That's the main thing that no one's really getting at. Like, he could have moved.
What would have happened if I would have
That
moved?
does
You
make
would've moved,
sense
you
now.
would've moved. I would have moved. Everybody else would have moved.
I don't know how drones work. If I move left, then get hit with the drone, then Dean's gonna be like, oh, why'd you move? I was flying the drone.
Mr. Richardson, do you take any responsibility for your injuries?
I do not take responsibility for his drone hitting me. All the risks that I take when I go adventuring are calculated risks.
So,
Doesn't
Mr.
happen.
Black, you brought a witness with you, Miss Kayla Myers.
Yes, sir, I did.
Miss Myers, would you stand and come to the podium, please? You've been part of this adventure group.
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
Is it true? I mean, do you guys seek out danger as part of your adventures?
Well, we don't seek out danger. Him, on the other hand, he is constantly trying to one-up us. We call him the daredevil.
Just give me a couple examples you remember.
He always has to be the one who's jumping off and doing a flip. Like, we were going on the cliff, and we ended up jumping off of it into the water. He had to do, like, a bunch of flips, like...
This guy's not gonna jump.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he
Yeah.
It's what you get out of it.
Woo!
No,
I just don't have those needs,
The
okay?
danger makes the...
So did you do these kind of dangerous things?
Yes, Your Honor, I did do those kind of dangerous things. I know how to safely do those things.
He pushes everything.
We're not the mountain kind of adventure squad. We are the mountain adventure squad. There's no limit on the adventure we do.
It is amazing to me. You make it through diving off of cliffs and a drone takes you out?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Myers, what do you remember from this day?
Matt being extra that he has to be on king top of the world. He gets up on the boulder. We clearly see this thing coming at him. We're like, hey, move. Dean said, he's like, I don't have control, move. Like,
Move.
I mean, it's pretty easy to dodge. It's a pretty big piece of material.
Miss Myers, you may be seated. You don't believe this was your fault?
No. It obviously was not my fault because I didn't have this in my hand. I set it on home mode. He knew I had it on home mode, and I told him to move. So if he moves, I'm not here right now.
And Mr. Richardson, you don't believe this was your fault. You believe it was his fault.
No, Your Honor, he should have been piloting the drone. He shouldn't have just let this autopilot pilot the drone back to us when we're on top of a mountain.
Gentlemen, I've heard enough, and I think I'm ready to render my decision. Gentlemen, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff, you, Mr. Richardson, have to prove three things. You've got to prove that Mr. Black was wrong. You got to prove that first, and that his wrong caused your injuries. You are clearly injured. Today, you've put up evidence that he was the one controlling the drone. And Mr. Black, the law charges you with responsibility when you put something like this in the air. The law says it's your drone. The law says it's your controls. The law says it's your responsibility to control this item so that people don't get hurt. You cannot shirk that responsibility simply by putting the controls on the ground. So the law holds you responsible for this. Mr. Richardson, I know you were knocked off this rock. You sustained terrible injuries. You've got medical bills. You've lost wages. I understand why you filed this lawsuit. But the law looks at you too and looks at your behavior. You had an opportunity to avoid this whole thing if you had not been on that rock. And the last opportunity, the law has a concept called last clear chance. And with last clear chance, you have an opportunity to save yourself even when someone does something wrong. Yep. The law evaluates and compares responsibility. I find you both responsible for this. But when you both are responsible 50-50, the law's unforgiving and you lose. I find for Mr. Black, that is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned.